NXT was an absolute boiler. It was a pretty good show from Center Stage in Atlanta. Fun show from January the 28th, 2024. We're going to talk about it here on 3 Count Commentaries. I am your host, MagMongoSlade. Let's get right into it. Center Stage Theater in Atlanta. They set up the building for 772. They distributed 771 tickets, so essentially it was a sellout. It looked pretty good. It did not look like WCW Saturday Night, unfortunately, which is kind of what I expected it to look like, kind of what I wanted it to look like. Center Stage, for those of you who don't know, is the ancestral home of WCW Saturday Night. So I was hoping they'd go retro with the look of the building, but they didn't. It's okay. Still kind of dark in there, though. Now, in terms of news and notes, there's been a couple of interesting bits. One thing that people noticed, I think, over the weekend is that Thea Hale has not wrestled in 6 months, and there has been no discussion about Thea Hale at all. Her last match was July the 30th versus, I believe, Roxanne Perez. And that was the last match she participated in. Pretty well-regarded match, too. Unfortunately, the young lady, despite her talent, has been missing for a really long time. And the question is, where the hell is Thea Hale? We haven't heard that she was injured. We haven't heard that she gotten sick. Maybe she's going to get... she's only 21, so hopefully she's not doing anything to her body. You know, sometimes when these NXT girls vanish, they pop up with new tits and stuff like that. Hopefully that's not the case. She's still old enough to develop. But she was, of course, side by side with Chase University through most of this time. And now she's just in the wind. Hopefully they're going to renew her character, because now that Chase University is gone, there needs to be something new for her. So, and she always wrestles sporadically as it is anyway. So maybe there's some other behind the scenes stuff going on. But of course, everybody really loves Thea Hale and she's a great performer. Hopefully she can get back soon, or they can at least talk about her and mention why she hasn't wrestled in 6 months. But other than that, the only other news and notes is there was a slight NXT invasion of the live TNA Impact episode that took place the week of the 23rd, I believe it was. They just continued a lot of the storylines that already existed. The Cora Jade, Masha Slamovich thing, Wesley and the Rascals are continuing their feud. And, Tariq and, what's the name? Tyson and Tyreek, they have joined Wesley in this feud to give them the numeric advantage. And then you have, of course, Ariana Grace hanging out with Santino Marella, as she's the liaison between NXT and TNA. And essentially, they're just seemingly going to continue along this line, because Cora Jade is going to wrestle on Impact. Also, Wesley is going to wrestle on Impact again. So they're not expanding it, too far. They're still trickling NXT talent in, and they haven't done anything in terms of a reverse yet. So I guess we're going to wait for that. And that was one of the things that a lot of TNA fans are concerned about, is TNA being used as a territory for the WWE, where they send talent and they don't never send, the upper level talent. Of course, it's going to just be NXT. I don't know why people think that all of a sudden John Cena is going to show up in TNA. It seems very unrealistic. Also seems kind of dumb. It's not going to happen. But the partnership is well received, but there's some conspiracy theories that have been floating around out there that I want to discuss, and there's no better time, no better place than during the NXT review, as Dave Meltzer is going to, quote, as MSN says, assess the goals and purpose of WWE's TNA partnership. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but it says the veteran reporter provided 5 points, noting that the WWE TNA alliance offers greater visibility to the now Canadian-owned promotion. Yes, we already know that. He says, there are several reasons for this partnership. He believes that WWE's assistance, TNA could be viewed as the second largest promotion in the industry. Uh, okay. Now, why would you think that? Now, in the very next sentence, they completely destroy this argument by saying, of course, pay-per-view and television viewership do not compare to AEW, which, since its inception in 2019, has garnered a second place position in WWE. Okay, but it says, if TNA could secure a deal with a stronger channel in the United States, this could lead to higher ratings. Well, that's obvious. If they got off that shitty network, it'd be pretty obvious that they could do well. But just merely having some NXT stars on your program doesn't necessarily mean that you're the number 2 promotion. What made people feel like it was the number 2 promotion is that TNA had momentum, which the partnership added to the momentum. It didn't take away from it because TNA had momentum before the partnership, really. Okay, his second point is that the possibility of WWE acquiring TNA in the future. It says, although the idea was considered by AEW's Tony Khan in 2018 and a year ago with Scott D'Amore, it says, Meltzer indicated that as currently structured, it would be challenging for TKO to purchase another wrestling promotion until 2028. Let's pause it right here because I don't think if the plan was to buy TNA, they just bought the company. They don't need to do a partnership before they buy the company. If they wanted to buy the company, they just buy it. If they wanted to buy the library, which they probably could, they just buy it. Now, I did see plenty of stories where apparently Anthem tried to sell TNA to Tony Khan in 2018 before he launched AEW. Of course, that's just a rumor. I don't think Tony Khan has ever confirmed or denied it. Also, Scott D'Amore tried to buy the company. It wasn't that Anthem was trying to sell it. It was that Scott D'Amore was trying to buy it. So that's a different scenario. It's a different scenario when you're trying to sell something and then when somebody else is trying to buy it, even though the outcome is the same. It says Meltzer's third and fourth points go hand in hand, highlighting international television exposure and long-standing alliances that will benefit both companies involved. It says WWE's objective at this stage is to ensure that AEW, their top competitor, does not secure any international TV deals that could arise after WWE announced their streaming deal with Netflix. Is that really the goal? Is that really the plan? Because WWE could just not care. I mean, they could legitimately just not care. It says AEW, which increased its visibility with Max and Triller TV, and also Amazon Prime, which was announced after this article was written, that AEW are going to have their pay-per-views available on Amazon Prime. It says, continues to enhance its global exposure. WWE reportedly, I don't know if it was the report or if it's just Meltzer thinking out loud, wants TNA to surpass AEW in its runner-up position. This is because of conspiracy theory. Okay, WWE, I'll tell you what it is. They want somewhere they can ship off their young talent. They have a lot of talent, very young, not ready for television, but they've already signed them. Some of them have gimmicks already. Some of them have been around for a while. They need somewhere to send them. So TNA is one of those places they can trust. Reality of Wrestling is one of the places they can trust. Like the WWE ID program, it's all being set up so that WWE can outsource the training of a lot of these talents. I said it before, I'm thinking probably within the next 10 years or so, there's not going to be a performance center. It's more than likely going to be all of these different schools and then maybe TNA and maybe another promotion. They're talking about the WWE Evolve thing, which I guess I got to discuss that too tonight. And those being programs and shows where they can work in front of an audience. I don't see why this needs to be a conspiracy against AEW. I know that's what Meltzer thinks because Meltzer always thinks that. But sometimes the simplest explanation is the easiest one. Even if TNA did get some kind of international television deal or streaming deal or whatever, it doesn't stop AEW from bringing in however many hundreds of millions of dollars they're going to make from Warner Brothers Discovery. It's not stopped their growth of pay-per-view. None of this stuff is going to work, but it will help WWE in the long run if they have somewhere to send talent to get better. There's another really good conspiracy theory that has not been posited by Dave Meltzer, but by smarter people than Dave, is that the WWE NXT partnership is about getting around potential monopoly accusations, similar to what the UFC faced in recent years. And that if WWE has a partnership with TNA and a partnership with all of these smaller indie promotions like Reality of Wrestling, then they can say that, hey, we're trying to help the business and we're not trying to be a monopoly. Look at all these other healthy companies that exist. We're not going to go around buying companies. We're going to invest in them. We're going to lend them talent. And that actually helps WWE a lot more than buying TNA does. Buying TNA, it helps them in terms of the library, because then you have the complete library of AJ Styles. You have a more complete library of Kurt Angle. You have more material for Scott Hall and Kevin Nash and guys like that. But ultimately, keeping TNA around probably keeps a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit off the books, especially since they just went through this lawsuit with MLW. Even though they paid MLW $20 million to go away or whatever, a pittance compared to WWE. But, life-changing money for MLW. This is more about how these things can benefit WWE and make it a mutual thing without these companies going out of business. Because in the long run, WWE doesn't want to be seen as a monopoly, and therefore does not want to have to deal with restructuring contracts, multi-billion-dollar lawsuits, all that kind of stuff. If given TNA and Reality of Wrestling and a lot of these other schools a couple of bucks just to be around, and then making them work for it by saying, hey, you got to deal with Cora Jade for a little bit. You got to work for it. You're not going to give it to you for nothing, but you got to work for it, right? And in terms of the international business, if TNA is a stronger brand in some markets than AEW, then you may see TNA get a better international deal. But it won't be because they're partners with WWE. It'll be because TNA is a strong brand that operates in that market. And to me, I think okay, so let's pause. Let's pause this thought because I want to continue this. Access recently canceled the New Japan show. This was announced, I think, days after the TNA NXT deal was announced. And Anthem owns the network, and then New Japan, is gone. The conspiracy theory came out. WWE pulled the plug on the New Japan show. In reality, it was New Japan that pulled the plug on the New Japan show. Nobody watching the show anyway. Most people didn't even know the show was still on the air. It didn't seem to benefit New Japan at all. And they're struggling. They're struggling over there in Japan, man. The times are tough. The belts is getting tight. There's like a famine going on. That's why all the companies are starting to work together. There's not a lot of money to be had over there in Nippon at the moment. So not everything is a big grand conspiracy to screw AEW. I mean, it's just not. WWE has a bunch of ulterior motives for doing partnerships with TNA. And plus, Vince is not there anymore. That's one of the top reasons why this stuff is happening. If this was Vince McMahon all of a sudden wanting to be partners, you could be suspicious. But this is Triple H and Nick Khan and these guys. They're different kinds of vampires. Vince was Dracula. Triple H is some kind of newfangled Twilight vampire. Vince is old school, sitting on the throne for thousands of years, classic bloodsucker. Triple H is some newfangled vampire, So I'm not too concerned about this being some kind of conspiracy against AEW. Now, there has been some discussions that after the LFG show, which is going to be airing on AEW at some A&E at some time soon, which is going to be the show that's going to feature new talent with legends. Like, it's kind of like some kind of newfangled Tough Enough with Mickey James and all of them. That show is going to be launching in February. After that show, however, there's been some talk that there's going to be a WWE Evolve show. So Gabe Sapolsky is supposed to take over booking a new show that's going to be attached to NXT. This has been discussed for a couple of days now. Back on January the 25th, SES Scoops talked about this. It says fans have been eagerly awaiting updates on the new WWE show currently under the working title WWE NXT Evolve. Reports suggest that the new project is in development with Gabe Sapolsky playing a key role. Sapolsky worked with Paul Heyman and ECW, co-founder of Ring of Honor, and later led Evolve. Mike Johnson of PW Insider says that the concept for WWE NXT Evolve is in play, but no concrete plans have been confirmed. The report notes that some independent wrestling talents had been approached about their availability for a potential taping date, though that initial date was later postponed. As of now, there are no internal WWE dates scheduled for anything related to the brand. He said the proposed show will likely feature WWE Next in Line NIL talent and developmental talents, providing a platform for the company's rising stars. So similar to Level Up, except for they're probably just going to rebrand Level Up. So, yes, I heard about this. It was actually an idea that has been floated around for a couple of years. As you know, they bought Evolve in 2021 or something. So Evolve was, of course, the pre-TNA, the pre-reality of wrestling. It was where WWE sent their developmental talent to train, and then WWE would upload Evolve shows to the network. All of that seemed to work out just fine until COVID. And Evolve could not shoot any more shows, and therefore it closed, and WWE just bought the company after it closed. So now they own the brand. And a lot of people thought like, oh, WWE just killed Evolve, like there wasn't a worldwide pandemic that had something to do with that, you know? So a lot of indie wrestling fans, they don't like Gabe Sapolsky. He's a scumbag promoter. I mean, it is what it is, like most scumbag promoters. If this show is going to happen, it ought to be interesting. I'm always interested in seeing when WWE wants to do something different. So it sounds a lot like it's just going to be Level Up in a sense. But if it's going to feature unique storylines and unique characters or whatever, I may check it out. All right, so speaking of unique storylines and unique characters, it's finally time to get into NXT. Julia and Bayley defeat Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez. It was an okay match. Cora Jade took a flying elbow from the top rope and was pinned. Match was okay, like I said earlier. Cora Jade is just not good. Her getting beat here is probably not great for the crossover. You would think keeping her strong would be necessary in order for it to really add some kick to her going to TNA. But at the same time, somebody's got to lose. And what they decided to do after this kind of made Cora Jade the odd girl out. So later on, Roxanne Perez went to Ava and was complaining because Julia and Bayley were eyeing each other. They were giving each other the eye. Like Bayley wanted to challenge Julia for a match. Roxanne didn't like that. She wanted a rematch instead. Ava made it a triple threat between Julia, Bayley, and Roxanne Perez. But Cora Jade was pissy because Roxanne was like, I didn't even lose. Cora lost. And then Cora was like, oh? And that was pretty much it. Bayley gets another championship match, but they didn't want her to do a clean job for Julia, so they threw Roxanne in there. Defeats the point as far as I'm concerned. Yes, there's too much Bayley on these shows. There's way too much Bayley. At the same time, she's in a new environment. She's wrestling people I've never seen her wrestle before. So it works. I'm okay with it. She's not wrestling Nia Jax. She's not wrestling Bianca Belair. She's not wrestling Candice LeRae. She's not wrestling Tiffany Stratton. She's wrestling people I've never seen her wrestle before. So this works out just fine. Now, Bayley being the liaison between WWE and the Japanese female talent has been quite humorous. And that seems to be the chosen role that they have for her right now. And I'm wondering if they're actually going to build up to a Bayley versus Julia singles match. Because I don't see any good reason why you just don't have that match. It seemed like a better idea to me. But if they do that, what do you do with Roxanne Perez? In any event, Cora Jade, she was pissy, like I said earlier. So she went and found Ava. And they walked off and started talking about something. But we don't know what they talked about yet. Again, Cora Jade is going to be going over to TNA. So she should have been kept strong for that. But they decided not to go that route. So whatever. Eddie Thorpe said that he had been overlooked in NXT, and he forced his way into the main event, proved that he belonged, said his destiny is to be the champion, it's not by chance, and he cannot be broken. He was dancing around, well, he wasn't dancing around the fire. It might have been better if he'd actually did an old Tatanka war dance around the fire, you know? It might have been better for his character if he'd have just said, yay! You know, chest beating around the fire, you know? Anyway, who cares about Eddie Thorpe? Moving on. Grayson Waller effect featuring Obafemi. This thing went on for a long time. It was a decent segment, too. Austin Theory was getting positive reactions here. They actually wanted Austin Theory to take over the segment rather than have Grayson Waller host the segment. And so he did. Austin Theory then went on the attack, the verbal attack on Obafemi, saying that he don't think that Obafemi is main roster material. Saying that the two of them won championships at WrestleMania. Between the two of them, they have performed at 4 different WrestleManias. I don't know about that. I remember Austin Theory being at 3 WrestleManias. I don't think I remember him being at 4. Let's go through the number. I remember him wrestling John Cena, him winning the tag team championships, and he wrestled, what was that, Pat McAfee at WrestleMania one year. Is there another one of these matches that I missed? I think Grayson Waller's WrestleMania debut was the tag team championships. So I don't know. Maybe it is only 3, and maybe he counts Waller's as 4. He talked about how their big league, A-Town Down Under, their big league, they create unforgettable moments. And Obafemi kind of counters by saying that neither one of these two guys have been the NXT champion. In 2 years, he's done way more than both of these guys in NXT combined. And that he's building a dynasty in NXT. They don't have championships. And he challenged them to pick one of them and he'll fight him at Vengeance Day. The whole time, Trick Williams is pacing backstage like a wild lion. He's watching this and he's getting more and more frustrated at the idea that Theory or Waller will get a championship match before him. Ava comes out because she's the worst general manager in WWE. Decides that she's going to ruin Obafemi's booking because he was booking himself perfectly fine. He was doing a good job. He said, I'll pick one of you guys, figure it out, I'll kick his ass at Vengeance Day. Ava was like, no, we're not doing that. You don't get to pick your own matches. It's going to be a triple threat match with both of them versus Obafemi at Vengeance Day, which is a worse idea than what Obafemi had. Obafemi had a great idea. You two guys figure it out, and I'll fight the winner. Or I'll fight the guy who won the coin toss, or whatever the hell, right? 1-on-1, man-to-man. Could have been fun. Ava, because she's a bird brain, she decided she's going to make it a triple threat match. Trick Williams he gets pissed. He stands no more. He goes to the ring, starts a fight with A-Town Down Under, beats them up. Obafemi drops him on his back, injures his ribs, and did not want Trick Williams' help. He leaves the scene. Trick Williams is left to wrestle Wesley, who was his scheduled opponent for the night. Wesley, who has now colored his hair, and I don't know, man. He looks. He went and did the Cisco. I don't get that. Uh, he went and pulled a thong song. I don't get it. Anyway, Trick Williams got disqualified because his whole gimmick now is he's out of control. He attacked Wesley after the ref. He attacked Tyreek and Tyson outside the ring. He threw the referee, grabbed the chair. He was just out of control. The match was okay up to this point. I'm glad that they didn't have Wesley lose another match. Look, I'm not the biggest Wesley protector, but you kind of do have to keep somebody strong on this show. You just can't beat Wesley 1,000 times now. Come on. So afterwards, Ava storms into the men's locker room without knocking on the door or nothing. She could have saw Jimmy Johns all over the place. If a man had done this, it'd be sexual harassment all over the internet, but because it's a woman, it's okay. Especially since it's a large Samoan woman with a weird lisp. In any event, Ava stormed into the men's locker room, and Trick Williams told her that A-Town Down Under did not deserve a championship match. Ava says for him to prove it, and teamed him up with Obafemi to wrestle A-Town Down Under next week on NXT. Let me tell you this. Doing the partners that don't get along, the can they coexist? I hate that. I hate can they coexist. Make it about something. Say that the person who loses is out. How about that? If you say, hey, if Trick Williams is pinned on his team, he's out. You know, he's out of the title picture. It remains the triple threat match that I booked. But if Trick Williams pins Grayson Waller, then he replaces Grayson Waller. If he pins Austin Theory, he replaces Austin Theory. If Obafemi gets pinned, then he's got to fight all four of them. You know, like, you could make it interesting. And instead, just made it a tag team match. But they'll probably end up making it a fatal 4-way anyway, if we're being honest. They may even make it a 5-way because Wesley is still hanging around there. Not that I actually want that. I'm just saying. Maybe they'll move Wesley to the side and he'll just make it a fatal 4-way. Izzy Dame is apparently going to be Tony D'Angelo's girlfriend. She says that they just have a common enemy in, what's his name? Shawn Spears. And that there was nothing between her and Tony D'Angelo. Ridge Holland called her a liar. And then Stack said, you don't talk to no lady like that. And Ridge Holland told him to go shine Tony D'Angelo's shoes. And so they all got into it. It seemed last week that they were going to do a gimmick where Izzy Dame was going to be secretly working or secretly helping Shawn Spears. And then now this week, it seems like they're going mob wife with Izzy Dame, where she's going to be like Tony D'Angelo's, girlfriend. I'm not sure which of those ideas I like more. I guess the one that does not involve Shawn Spears is the best one. How about that? Shawn Spears not involved with this storyline? Great. But if it's Izzy Dame playing the long game, where she pretends to be Tony D'Angelo's girlfriend, pretends to be his main squeeze, and they should literally call her his main squeeze, because that was great when they did it with Bam Bam Bigelow and Luna Vachon. Then for her to flip on him later on, that would be great. But her already causing problems within the D'Angelo family is fun too. Fallon Henley defends the North American Championship against Shotzi, and which was a solid as fuck match, if we're being honest. It had a lot of the same problems that I always see with these matches. Tons of telegraphing, and not everything was as crisp as it could be. But this is modern indie pro wrestling, okay? Just got to get over it. The crews fought off, so Chemical X came down with Shotzi. Fatal Influence came down with Fallon Henley, and all four of them fought off later as the match went on. Fallon Henley hit a 619 over the ring post, which I thought was a great spot. She had targeted Shotzi's leg, which was also pretty cool. Shotzi ended up hitting a very, very stiff senton bomb from the top rope. I mean, oof, it was stiff. Hopefully, Fallon Henley did not eat any beans or anything like that, as she hopefully she did this match on an empty stomach, because I'm pretty sure the contents of her guts would have came out after Shotzi landed directly on her belly. So Fallon Henley just wins the match with the hoedown, which don't like the name of that move. Even though I do recognize the double entendre and I respect the double entendre of the hoedown, because, she's a cowgirl. Cowgirls, they would participate in a hoedown, but they also call women hoes. The match was a little too clean in terms of the finish. Fallon Henley won the match very, very clean. I would normally say probably should cheat, but the next step kind of proves why they didn't cheat. Stephanie Vaquer, she faced off with Fallon Henley immediately after the match. You would think Stephanie would have beat her up after she went chasing for her last week, but she didn't. So somebody is, I guess she's calmed down after she got her guaranteed title match, so she's calmed down. Stephanie Vaquer is the number one contender. Fallon Henley was very upset about this, was not happy, and neither was JC Jane. They both felt disrespected. Fallon Henley was ranting when JC Jane cut her off. And then Fallon Henley volunteered JC Jane to fight Stephanie Vaquer next week. And despite the fact that she was not thrilled about that, JC Jane was like, okay, I'll fight her. So they're teasing a breakup of Fatal Influence already, which I wish they didn't. I wish they did not. JC James just been in NXT for too long, I mean, I've said that before. Between her, Shotzi, and Gigi Dolan, they've got like 19 years in NXT. They just got a lot of time in developmental, and it's not looking like it's going to end anytime soon either. But I like these girls. They're colorful. I don't know what JC can do on the main roster. I'm not sure she can do much of anything at all. Same thing with Gigi. Same thing with Shotzi. I just don't see them as characters that Triple H wants to push. He just seems to be averse to these kinds of characters, which is why they're still in NXT. Okay, moving on. Kalani Jordan and Carmen Petrovich got into it. Kalani Jordan was being a bitch, and then Carmen Petrovich called her a bitch, but that was later. At this point in time, Kalani just wanted Carmen Petrovich to know that she did not come out to help her, that she does not like her, and she also believes that Ashante the Adonis will be dumping her because Carmen Petrovich is delusional. Carmen was very upset about all this, and that's when she called Kalani a bitch, but Kalani wasn't there to hear it, so maybe she's going to take up arms about it next week. Kalani Jordan trying to be mean. Okay, it's something. But I also thought that Carmen Petrovich was turning heel. That's what I thought. But I don't know. What do I know? I don't know nothing. Ethan Page defeated Cedric Alexander in a match that went on far too long. Cedric Alexander came into the match with an injured wrist, and they played that up during the match, and then, of course, Ethan Page just plain won. I mean, no cheating, just taking advantage of an injured guy. Ethan Page tried to continue to brutalize Cedric Alexander after the match, and Javon Evans jumped in the ring. Great leaping ability by Javon Evans. He gets into the ring, throws a couple of shots at Ethan Page. Ethan Page powdered. Javon Evans looked very strong. And despite the fact that he leapt over the top rope and pretty much landed on his face with his jaw supposedly wired shut, the match itself was okay. Whatever. I don't think there was ever any doubt that Ethan Page was going to win. Javon Evans is coming in like a house of fire, which is good. He's the higher level babyface of the two, so he's making the big save. They really doing a good job of building his match with Ethan Page. I'm pretty sure they're going to have to go with a gimmick of some kind, though. I think having a straight up match between the two of them just doesn't seem to make sense at this point in time. The main event of this thing of ours here, NXT, was Sisters in the Spotlight, Bianca Belair and Naomi defeating Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend in a legitimately good, enjoyable match. I mean, Lash Legend, she has improved so much. She's still not amazing in the ring, but she's so much better than she was. I have never seen anybody improve this much. I think it's been like a year since she was one of the worst wrestlers in the world. And now she's doing Sasuke specials in the ring. The great Sasuke usually does his little handspring stuff over the top rope. She's doing gymnastic routines in the ring. Like, she's a little bigger than most girls. So it looked kind of like her knees might crush Bianca's head. but she performed it pretty well. Okay. Only problem I have with this match, I don't think they did enough for Jakara. I don't think they called enough for her. She didn't do a lot. She seemed to just be in there to take bumps and then do the occasional jump through the ropes or to aid Lash Legend in her offense. It doesn't seem like they have anything specifically for Jakara to do. It seems like she's supposed to be the smaller, speedier, the high flyer of the two. Or she's supposed to be like the technically sound one of the two. But she's basically like the swag. That's pretty much it. Because they don't show enough of what she can do. And as I was watching this match, the longer it went, it was like Jakara would do little except get beat up. She would get bench pressed. She'd get slammed. She'd get suplexed. And you'd be like, man, is Jakara going to have any offense? And then she'll do one thing, or she'll help Lash Legend do a thing, a tag team move. But in terms of having her own offense, something that really tells people what her specialty might be, is like, nope. It's like Lash Legend is out there pulling out everything. She's doing power moves. She's trying to do gymnastics. It's like, okay, Jakara, what do you do? She's like, okay, I can get thrown off the top rope. Okay, I can do a tope. Okay, is that it? Like, you need to get some offensive moves, honey. Naomi, okay, so Naomi blew a spot here. We got to talk about this. It's very important. It was near the end of the match, too, and kind of ruined the finish. So Jakara Jackson did get an offensive move in. It was a roll-up, and it was a very deep 2 count. Extremely deep. So deep, in fact, that the crowd booed because it was clear to them that Jakara Jackson actually did get the 3 count, except the ref didn't call it. And because Naomi kicked out very late. Extremely odd decision by Naomi to not kick out immediately, but to wait for that deep 2 count. So I think it ruined the finish, if we're being honest, because the crowd was still kind of shitty about the late 2 count when the finish occurred. So I'm not really a huge fan of that, but the match itself really went over very well. Bianca, of course, was great. Her and Lash Legend, they have some chemistry, but there's also some issues where you can tell that Bianca was trying to lead her around. At the same time, Bianca does everything at supersonic speed, and everybody else has difficulty keeping up. And so she's like bouncing around waiting for everybody else to get up for them to sell or do whatever. And it seems like she's rushing them. And this is like a recurring thing you see with her when she, I don't know if she does like a routine where she knows where her spots are supposed to be and she's expecting for you to know too. But if you're late, it seems obvious to Bianca Belair that she's waiting on you, But that's like the only weakness in her game. She seems to be a little bit impatient with her opponents as they try to sell for her, or if they trying to do something else, she kind of gets a little antsy about it. But other than that, the two teams seem to work very well together. There was a lot of people who were kind of disappointed that Lash Legend didn't get to win in her hometown, which I'm not surprised about. Like, why in the world would Bianca and Naomi lose on NXT? Like, it would have been great money, because you can't really miss between Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson, and it would have been a great moment. At the same time, though, Bianca and Naomi, I know Triple H has forgotten this, but they're in the middle of a storyline trying to figure out what happened to Jade Cargill. They're detectives. They're the worst detectives of all time. They're detectives that's not looking for clues. They're actively running away from clues. They're actively losing clues. They're dropping clues and like, oh shit. Well, we'll come back to it when we get ready. It's the worst whodunit probably ever produced in wrestling. Just produce like a second Jade Cargill that pushed the first Jade Cargill off that parking structure. Just do that, I guess. A Jade Cargill lookalike murdered Jade Cargill. Let's do like a Kane versus Kane or a Mystico versus Mystico. Find another black woman, put her in a silver wig, and give her abs and all that kind of stuff. He's got to be one of them. I think there's like a Kylie Armstrong or something like that. One of those young ladies in NXT that's like black and super built. Just put a silver wig on her and then pretend that she's the one who murdered Jade Cargill, or that she's the real Jade Cargill all along, and the fake Jade Cargill just stole her identity for 10 years and worked in AEW under her name and everything. You know, something's got to be better than just going weeks and 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 weeks without mentioning it. Something's got to be better than that. Holy guacamole. I've seen better storytelling in picture books. Triple H is the shits, I'm telling you. Boy. But this match was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed this match. In fact, I enjoyed a lot of the women's matches on this show. Because the women's matches typically are what make NXT very strong. The men's division is still very weak. Still, they did a good job with Waller and Theory on this show. Especially with Theory taking over the segment. He seemingly got to the point. He ran down Obafemi very effectively. He got the crowd to turn on him because the crowd was very pro Theory at first. They wanted Theory to take over the segment. As Theory was running down Obafemi, they were yelling for him to turn on Grayson, or turn on Waller, or whatever. And Waller was like, "Don't you dare turn on me!" And then Austin Theory turned his back to Grayson Waller and was like, "Hey, you happy?" And they were like, "Boo." So by the end of it, he ended up getting back over as a heel through what he was saying and what he was doing. So the men's division could certainly use Waller and Theory. The angle of them coming down to NXT and big leaguing Obafemi, it works. It's something these characters would do. It's something these characters should do. And Austin Theory, they missed the boat with him so hard that I'm wishing that he would just stay in NXT for a little while. Let Sean book this kid, man. Triple H has had his chance. He's had 2 or 3 years with Austin Theory. And he just cannot make it work. But Grayson Waller did excellent down in NXT with under the tutelage of Shawn Michaels. Maybe just leave these guys down there for a little bit. Let them give them a year. Like, both of them are still very young guys. Matter of fact, I don't know how old Grayson Waller is. But Austin Theory is still a very young guy, man. Another run in NXT to freshen him up. You know, give him a new gimmick. Maybe no more A-Town down. You know, something a little bit more, I don't know, with some more pizzazz, character development. But just, if you're not going to do anything with them, leave them in NXT. You know, I like Austin Theory. I see the potential. Leave them in NXT if you're not going to do anything with them. Now, in terms of the other men, Trick Williams, they're doing an interesting thing with him. Although it feels like it's similar to what they had done with like Eddie Thorpe and some of the other more frustrated guys that they have had on the shows recently. But him being, you know, pretty pissed about losing his championship, especially in a match that was a triple threat match, I can see, you know, what they're doing here. They're building something here with him. Obafemi is great, though. He's just phenomenal. Hopefully he gets to be in the Royal Rumble this year. Hopefully him and Trick gets to be in the Royal Rumble this year. I'm going to cross my fingers that both guys will be in it. I don't think so. But just think about that, though. There's an opportunity to get 60,000 people to chant "whoop that Trick." Think about that. That could be amazing. That could be money. It could be almost a star-making entrance. Of course, he's going to have to do something after that. But if you just have his music play and have the people go nuts and chant "whoop that Trick" for 2 or 3 minutes, just while he goes in there, throws a couple of punches, and then gets grabbed by, you know, Pete Dunne or something like that and dragged into a corner, that could be great. And then having Obafemi come down, maybe he can be the badass in the whole thing. That could be fun too. But NXT seems to really be focusing on the women's division. Bringing Bayley and bringing Bianca Belair and Naomi down to the main roster, down to NXT, really boosts the women's division. I definitely think they need to do more with Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend. This should not be the end for them. They should still be in the hunt. Clearly, they didn't win because the idea is for Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. But Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson could have easily dropped the belts to Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez too. But I think you have to reward Lash Legend for her improvement. Like, Jakara Jackson can't do much right now. I mean, that's just facts. You know, they don't do a lot with her. She doesn't stand out as much as she should because she looks great. But they don't do enough singles matches with her, and they don't really give her much to do. So at this point, it would be a vehicle to push Lash Legend, which I think is terrible because Jakara Jackson has such charisma. All right. In closing, the show went off the air showing an old barcode for when networks used to go off the air. So there was like, you know, if you've ever had an old television, if you're old enough to remember when TV channels actually shut down, they actually did that at the end of the show. And it went from WWE transmission to Vengeance Day. And there's been a lot of questions about what this could possibly be. A lot of people are thinking this is going to be a invasion. That there's going to be some kind of TNA invasion into NXT led by Sami Callihan, because Sami Callihan has been doing a hacker gimmick. And, well, he did one when he was in NXT. He also kind of does a hacker gimmick in TNA as well. I think that's the worst possible option because Sami Callihan is absolute trash. That warthog is terrible. He's awful. Keep him off NXT television. Keep him away from NXT. I don't want the warthog. Bebop, stay away from NXT. Stay away from my beloved NXT, you pig goblin. If it's anybody else though, okay, I'm willing to hear you out. But Callahan, no, I'm not willing to hear you out. I'm not willing to entertain Brian Myers. I'm not willing to entertain Eddie Edwards. I'm not willing to entertain Sami Callihan. Most other people, let me correct myself, I'm willing to entertain if this is some kind of TNA crossover invasion thing. If it's a new talent, what new talent? Would it be Jordynne Grace? Why would it be Jordynne Grace? Why would you have a teaser for Jordynne Grace? She's been on this show 4 times already. Why would you need a teaser for Jordynne Grace? She's already been on the show a bunch of times already. Now, maybe it's going to be a new talent that they signed that has not appeared on NXT yet. Well, I don't know who that would be. So I don't have the answer to that question. So it's hard to tell, and it's not much, but it's got people talking, you know, which is the necessity when it comes to pro wrestling angles and surprises. As you build suspense, they've already told you that whatever this is going to be revealed on Vengeance Day. So a lot of people are sitting back, you know, waiting. I hope it's not Stevie Turner, because Stevie Turner was also doing a hacker gimmick. Remember that? Before she ended up being a stooge for Ava, she was doing a hacker gimmick. But, you know, this production stuff seems to be pretty fun. I'm interested in seeing where it goes. NXT, once again, it's not firing on all cylinders, but it's firing on enough cylinders that the fucking car is moving, you know? Not an episode goes by of NXT where none of the storylines progress. You know, there's some storyline progression, even if guys are not on the show. Like Tony D'Angelo wasn't on the show, but his angle was still progressed with Izzy Dame and Stax and all of that, right? And that's a positive thing. Eddie Thorpe wasn't on the show, but, you know, there was a vignette to further his angle. The only angle that was on the show that didn't get followed up on and wasn't touched on at all, regrettably, it was Lexis King, Charlie Dempsey's story. Because last week, Lexis King cheated in order to keep the Heritage Cup. And they didn't touch on that, him cheating this week. In fact, as far as I can remember, there was no conversation at all about Lexis King and Charlie Dempsey or their angle. And that was the one angle of all the angles in the show that did not get progressed at all. See, when you watch a wrestling show, you should get some progression of storylines. I know Shawn Michaels needs to sit Triple H down. They're probably not that far apart in age. But he just send his old friend down and say, look, weeks and weeks and weeks of TV shows where the angles are not furthered are boring. I mean, look at how your ratings are starting to tank on Netflix. You went from being number 1 to being number 3/4 to being number 7. And it's all because you're not furthering any fucking angles on that show. Over here, our ratings are going up. NXT's ratings were in like the 700s a week or two ago because you can follow the stories. Even if you don't like the guys in the ring, you can follow the stories. There's always at least some element of surprise, or they're planting seeds for something else. The characters are over. People like them. And the ratings are going up on national television on a pretty shitty network, which is CW. I mean, let's be honest. It's a national TV network. Everybody has it, but it's still kind of a crappy network. Meanwhile, Triple H is on Netflix, and he's hanging Raw, right? Raw is getting lynched every week now. It's completely, totally uncalled for. But Shawn's cooking. Shawn's doing a good job, man. You know, kudos to Shawn Michaels. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later.
No one does it better yet.